Hello to everyone. And remember the safety. Our exit doors are here and here. The restrooms are across the garden. And we have an AED, which we hope we never use. So welcome to the Del Mar and everyone online on Zoom and later when you watch it on YouTube. This is not an official Sea Ranch entity. This is the forum. It's an unofficial group that is run by sea ranchers and was founded back in 1973. It's independent of the board of directors and staff. Please turn your cell phones off. Oh, I know, we all forget, don't we? So, and we won't be monitoring the chat for Zoom. Today is the 2026 Meet the Candidates events sponsored by the Sea Ranch Forum. My name is Paula Smith. I'm joined by Deb Scholey and Barry Weiss, and Stephen Smith is our timer. We've received over almost 50 questions before today's forum that came in on the info alert. People sent them in and they emailed them. Some of them have been about the same topics and we've combined them. We'll try to include suggestions today we received from the floor and that are emailed to Deb Scholey. Her email address is DSCHOLEY1 That's for the Zoomers. And if you give your email addresses to Rita at the door, your emails will be provided to the candidates with the questions that you want to give them. Okay, we're going to start everyone with a 2-minute introduction. Tell us about themselves. Each question, well, you have 2 minutes to answer, and we will be timing it. So we want you to not be pontificating. And for those of you that I would also recommend as another way to learn about our candidates, to take a look at George Callis's video on YouTube, This Sea Ranch Life, and with this candidate forum and what you've gotten in the mail, in the bulletin about the candidates, their email is listed there. So if you have more questions that you don't think were answered today, you can send email to the candidates, and it's in your first informational flyer. And then you can ask also when they've had a few drinks over at the park. So we're going to go alpha. So Linda McCabe, do you want to?
Dane.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Dane. I need to work on my alphabet. Dane's going to give us his first 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction. First off, I'm sorry that I'm not at Del Mar today. I'm in Southern California dealing with a personal obligation. And so unfortunately, I have to join you via Zoom, and I wish I could participate more fully and in person. A little about me, I am a Sonoma County native and have lived in Sonoma my entire life. My family, my wife and I, and 3 teenagers really, really love Sea Ranch. We treasure our time there. I spent a 30-year career building a local business, Sonic, an internet service provider. And that business succeeded by focusing on collaboration with staff, focusing on customer service, and efficient operations. And I am retired now and focusing on family time, soaking up all the time I can with the teenagers. We're doing college visits and they're going to be leaving pretty soon, so I'm enjoying that time. And I'm also focusing on volunteer work. And so offering to participate with the board of directors of the Sea Ranch is a keystone of some of that volunteer work that I'd like to do. And I'd certainly appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Hello, everyone. I want to thank Deb, Paula, Barry, Rita, Craig, and Steve for devoting their time today to help our community in the annual election season. I also want to thank all those who are spending their afternoon with the candidates here in Del Mar Center Hall, those on Zoom, and later on YouTube. I have been a sea rancher since 1999 and have lived full-time on the coast since 2021 when our house was finished. I began getting involved with our community by becoming a member of the Damage Assessors Group, the Posh Squash Garden, working at Redwood Coast Medical Services as their laboratory technical consultant, and I restarted the Sea Ranch Forum that had gone dormant for a few years. In case anyone was wondering, I recused myself in the planning of this meeting. I recruited them, but Deb, Paula, and Barry are responsible for the determining the questions, and I have not seen them ahead of time. Over the years, I've become friends with many sea ranchers. I remember being asked by Kathy Gordon when I would run for the board. Being ever practical, I replied, not until we had a house here. Because I didn't want to worry about driving home to Windsor after a long day of board meetings. And if anyone is wondering who Kathy Gordon was, she was a longtime editor of the Soundings, and she was featured prominently in the forum, The Founding Women of the Sea Ranch, which you can watch on the forum's YouTube channel. I chose to run this year because there are several safety issues the board is currently tackling that I have strong opinions about. I felt that the best way for me to assure that my concerns for our community were properly represented would be to articulate them myself as a candidate.
Thank you. Thank you. Neil?
Why are we here today, March 28th, 2026? Those of us here in Sea Ranch, those of us who are catching this on video, we're here because we have a shared story. The story starts in 1963, and all of you here know what happened. Oceanic Properties and Al Boki bought the ranch, 5,000 acres, from the Olson family and decided to do something radically different. They decided not to maximize profit, and instead of building 5,000 homes in their little quarter-acre plots, they decided to make a community that would live lightly on the land, and they assembled an amazing crew of visionaries. Lawrence Halprin, the architects, and God bless Donlin, he's still with us. And it wasn't easy. They had adversity to overcome. There was a moratorium. The Coastal Commission came in. They worked for years to resolve it. And finally, with the Bain Bill, they did resolve it. We face challenges today, okay? Things are changing. The climate is changing. Pathogens have hit our hedgerows. Fire safety is a greater concern. I think we need to, just as the visionaries who preceded us, we need to work together to find solutions to these problems. And I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Nitin?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nitin Rao, and thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be with such a strong group of candidates. Thank you, Deb, Paula, Barry, Steve, for organizing this event, but also, Linda, with your leadership, what the forum does year-round, creating community around important issues. I think that's wonderful. Sea Ranch is an incredibly important place for me and my family. When I go for walks with my father-in-law, as we walk past Black Point Beach, he talks about his childhood in 1969, being a kid, playing in the sand. And it's been wonderful seeing our families grow over time there. It's the place where by Shell Beach, I proposed to my husband, Tommy, over there, who's had his entire childhood in Sea Ranch. It's also the place where we've seen our siblings, my four nephews and niece grow up, the youngest 2, the eldest 10. And so it's really the place where we come to reflect, but also the place where we become the best version of ourselves. We recently hosted the 60th year celebration of Sea Ranch with Shar near the White Barn. And in doing so, I got the opportunity to reflect on the next 60 years of Sea Ranch and how we very much wanted to be engaged in making that just as memorable as the rich history we're building on. 3 reasons why I'd love the opportunity to be part of the board. One, very much excited about the future and the long-term infrastructure needed for Sea Ranch. Second, I realized that there continues to be turnover and there are new folks who join the community at Sea Ranch, and there are hundreds of folks who want to be more engaged with the board and don't always know how. And I'd love the opportunity to get new faces engaged with Sea Ranch while very much partnering with everyone who's involved. Most recently, my last career experience was as an executive helping build Cloudflare, a cybersecurity company that sits in front of about 20% of the internet. In that capacity, where I ran product and infrastructure at... Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, I'll give you another question, Nitin.
Okay.
How should we develop and prioritize multi-year capital projects? How best to engage community input into the process? And this will be for all 3 of you, and I'll read it again each time.
All 4.
Jasper, sorry. I need to see people.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I really appreciate the work that Menka and Steve and the entire team has done on the 30-year plan. The fact that Sea Ranch not only is thoughtful about every one of its assets and what we want to do over the next 30 years, the community we want to build around it, but actually sets aside a reserve of 1/30th of that spend in advance, I think shows the thought and consideration, and I very much appreciate it. I think it's incredibly important that we invest in sort of the foundational infrastructure, be it our roads, reliable water infrastructure, a reliable power. I was in Wallala recently and talking with Paul Kozal, who was talking about how he and Annabelle were impacted by just outages in the area. We routinely get PG&E alerts from the outages, and I think there's a real opportunity to be thoughtful about how we can have critical infrastructure for the next several years, and that extends to things like connectivity, which I know we will talk about at the cell tower. So really appreciate those investments. I think it's important we're thoughtful about the ways the HOA fees step up, going up to $413 this year. By being sort of long-term oriented, you can make sure that there aren't years where the fees go up too much or too little. We're really proactive in sort of managing that spend. I think Menka's team does a lot with a very small team. That's reflected even in this year's budget, where the headcount is not increasing, but they're thoughtful investments in a better member experience, in proactive pre-rehabilitation. And so really encouraged by the work that Mark and the finance committee does in this area. And so good 30-year plan to start on, and excited about building on that.
Thank you. Neil, how should we develop and prioritize multi-year capital projects? How best to engage community input into the process?
Well, I like what Nitin had to say. I'm thinking of the water company. We have some long-term capital projects. They're built into it's separate from the Sea Ranch, but by paying off the Tank 8 loan, we will have an extra $745,000 a year, and it will be put back into capital projects. That's the financial side. Getting to things like vegetation management, what to do about our hedgerows. I think they have a good approach already. We will get the best experts in the field. What are the pathogens? What's the life expectancy of cypress, of Monterey pine, and whatnot? And hold public forums, perhaps have task forces, and then hold meetings. That kind of a decision, what we do with our hedgerows, it's a multi-year process. It's not going to be done by a board in 1 year. And it seems sensible to me. Thank you.
Linda, how should we develop and prioritize multi-year capital projects? How best to engage community input into the process?
So one of the things that Nitin mentioned was the 30-year plan, which is not something that we're doing benevolently. It's something that we're required to do by Davis Sterling. And it's on a 3-year cycle that we have to do that. And this year it just happened to be that. I spoke with Craig Rice the other day, who's chair of the finance committee, and was just kind of sounding him out because I'm a laboratorian and not a financial analyst, and I will freely admit that. I respect the work that the finance committee is doing and people like Gina and Mark who are on our board that are finance people. Prioritizing our multi-year plan. Some of it will be, safety related. Some things that you may not have thought were necessarily priority, and things like bomb cyclones happen and 1,000 trees fall. And then all of a sudden that becomes prioritized, and other things that we had planned on doing, we may have to renumber things. So I know that the annual cycle for finances, they have meetings in the fall and in December and such. And there's generally not that many members who go to it. I think, Barry, you go to it every year. And we need to, keep making it available for members to give their input in. But if the members don't attend, then they can't get their opinions heard. So we send things out in the bulletin and info alerts, and it's up to the membership to decide when they want to listen.
Thank you. Dane, how should we develop and prioritize multi-year capital projects? How best to engage community input into the process?
Thank you. Sea Ranch is a beautiful community of people, but underlying that is a set of infrastructure and amenities that we all enjoy. The Del Mar facility, the pool at Olson, the pickleball courts at Moonraker, the access to the beach, the trails, and at the beginning, those are all capital projects, and their maintenance is significant. The roads in particular, we have a shocking amount of road linear footage, and it will be very expensive to maintain. I think that we need to thoughtfully improve and maintain those facilities. I say thoughtfully in the context of we're spending our members' money. And we want those members to feel like that investment was made at the appropriate time, and that those amenities were upkept, that maintenance was done before it became more costly in the future. So proactively, but also mindful of the economic impact that it has on our members. Community engagement is a key point that I think we have a lot of at Sea Ranch, but also we miss a lot of our members. As a resident member of the Sea Ranch, I haven't received a periodic survey from the association or the board. And it's been a key tool in my organization to ask employees how they feel about the organization and how it could be improved, and to ask customers how they feel about the organization and how it could be improved. And so I think it's wonderful. It's a very valid point. We should encourage participation in forums and this community, these live events. I think we also have an opportunity to gather information from our membership in order to make well-informed decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you get the next question. What is your understanding and perspective of the need for a cell tower in the northern part of Sea Ranch?
Well, understanding and perspective is you often lose cellular signal when you're in the northern region, and that presents concerns for me when it comes to safety. Someone hiking on our trails or the folks driving on our roads struggling with poor cell service. So I think we can all agree that it would be great to have uniform coverage of fast and reliable service. That's more than a convenience, it's a safety necessity. In regards to a cell tower, however, I think Sea Ranch's leadership needs to think about design standards and goals and move forward to build a business model around that before we wrestle with our community about exactly where it should be. And when I talk about design standards, we have design standards in our architecture, our commons, and cell towers should neither be seen nor heard. Modern cell towers are not monolithic towers on the side of the hill above Moonraker. Modern towers are camouflaged. They shouldn't be heard either. They have backup power generators, and those generators shouldn't be noisy diesel generators. We should set standards that require that those things be sound enclosed. Also, it's really clear that nobody wants a cell tower close to their home, so that we need to give a lot of consideration to the people who are closest to those towers or who might be impacted by them. And I think, today we're spending time talking about the tower at the dog park location, but it isn't clear that the carriers want a tower at that location, and that is the best site. And it isn't clear that we have a business model. But despite that, we're arguing with the neighbors about exactly where it should be. And I think that that's a premature part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, what is your understanding and perspective of the need for a cell tower in the northern part of Sea Ranch?
My understanding and perspective is that it is needed. I spoke the other day with Bronwyn Ghali, who is the head of Coast Life Support District, CLSD. I was talking to her at the fundraiser for Raise the Roof for the library. And I asked her about our cell coverage and how that impacts the CLSD people as first responders. And she gave me multiple anecdotes. And she kept saying there is a problem in the north end on the east side of Highway 1 with coverage. And I don't want to go into all the anecdotes because we don't have time. But she confirmed there is a problem, and the addition of the tower in Walala actually complicates matters when you call 911 on a cell phone, because it can redirect to the Big Gulch Tower. And when they're trying to dispatch first responders, they can think that the call is emanating from Mendocino County when it's Sonoma County. So precious minutes when you have a stroke or heart attack can make the difference between life and death. And when you have confusion as to where first responders should go, that's a problem. And yes, I was involved with the survey that was done in November for all of Sea Ranch. And of that, the measurements for signal strength against standards, only 2 were weak, 18 were poor.
Thank you. Neil?
Yeah.
What is your understanding and perspective of the need for a cell tower in the northern part of Sea Ranch?
I support the board's designation of the north end site for a cell tower. It's well documented that we need it. I've heard some criticism of the sequence of decisions, criticism that the board took up location at this early stage, and I think that flows from a lack of knowledge by some about the process. I met with Menka, our community manager, and she explained to me that the first thing is that it requires at least 2 of the 3 local cell carriers, 2 of 3 at least, for it to be financially feasible. And before any cell carrier will commit, they needed Sea Ranch to designate a site, okay? So that's just simply a predicate for the cell carriers to come in and decide whether they want to invest money in this in whatever fashion. And so that's why the board, and that's why the staff focus their initial attention on designating a site. And the next step will be a memo of understanding. So knowing these processes and what the necessary steps are is important to board members. And so I'm glad that the board took up their responsibility. I trust that they considered all the factors in designating the north end site. I understand it's about 1,250 feet from the nearest residence. But, change is hard, and construction is inconvenient, and I'm sure there'll be some inconvenience to some of those neighbors because when there is a cell site there, assuming there is, and I'm sorry for that, but it's a board member's job to make decisions in the best interest of the entire Sea Ranch. Thank you.
Thank you. Nitin, what is your understanding and perspective of the need for a cell tower in the northern part of Sea Ranch?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I've spent extensive time with the board members reviewing past board meetings, speaking with neighbors, including one on deer trail just this morning. And I appreciate this is a very charged topic, like one we've spent hours at board meetings on. And I'm especially empathetic to folks who live close to the dog park who are affected by this. As I see it, ultimately, it comes down to a difference of opinion on three matters. First, and foremost, is there a gap in connectivity? And to my second, is there the legal matter of like, does the board have the authority and can they use the remnant land for the cell towers use? And third, is the financial model putting the burden on the telecoms or is it putting burden on the association? Those are the three issues, and you'll get different answers from those. First, for connectivity, to my mind, it's extremely clear that there's a gap in connectivity. I spent the better half of this morning walking around, seeing the cell signal drop from LTE to 5G, drop from full bars to the lowest bars. And as someone who lives like further south, I think it's unfair to a vast number of members living close by who can't have that benefit of consistent coverage. While I appreciate the points about safety and first responders, I think the bar should be higher. We should all have great coverage at all times, even if you're not a first responder, even if it isn't an emergency. I think in many ways, this is a must-have, not a nice-to-have. Second, as far as the legal issue stands, I appreciate all the work that Tim and the team have done. They have opinion letters from their council saying that the board has authority and that remnant land can be used for community use. They haven't produced that opinion letter. And so the feedback and coaching I gave Tim just yesterday was to have council share a document that confirms that the board has the authority and the remnant land can be used for community use. And that would in many ways like really set to rest a number of concerns. And in many ways, the approach has been earnest, but not very effective. And we would save a lot of time had that letter been produced. And then finally, I think the burden should fall on the telecoms, not on the association bankrolling this.
Thank you. So you had another question. Please discuss issues around upkeep of infrastructure needed here at Sea Ranch.
Sorry, upkeep?
Upkeep.
Oh, upkeep. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, we'll be up a creek if we don't do it.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's so how do we manage the upkeep? So for starters, I think the Menka and the team, the FNR team, do a great job maintaining our infrastructure. Like every time you use the tennis courts or use the pool or walk on the trails, we're grateful for all the effort that the team does, ensuring we have a great experience and that we're safe. I think there are trade-offs to make, and like at board meetings, we have seen those discussions. For example, improvements to the airport, improvements to equestrian facilities. Which ones should be prioritized over others? Which ones should be borne by all members versus a subset of members who most use it? I think by and large, folks are really thoughtful. It was a board member, actually it may have been Dibby, in one or two board members meetings ago said, I love that Sea Ranch is a community. Even if I don't go around riding horses, I love that someone else is, and I love that I can support that being part of our community. I think that's the ethos we need more of, where we're thoughtful in prioritization, but we realize we're very much in this together.
Neil, please discuss issues around upkeep of infrastructure needed here at Sea Ranch.
Thank you. We have a 30-year plan, and we use industry standards to determine how long a particular asset will last, like our roads, and we know that we're going to have to invest a lot of money in rebuilding our roads. The challenge is that because of changes in climate and pathogens and whatnot, we're going to be spending a lot more money managing our vegetation. 3 or 4 years ago, we had a tremendous storm. It blew down 1,000 trees. I mean, that's truly extraordinary. And so I think what we're going to see is a much larger percentage of our dues payments going toward managing our vegetation, whether it's a hedgerows or dying pine trees in our commons. I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing big jumps in our monthly assessments, and it's unfortunately necessary. So it's sort of like, you have to put a new roof on your house. You don't really want to do it, but you have to do it. And we're well managed in that regard. And I know that our current board and our management are well aware of these challenges, and they'll meet them. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, please discuss issues around upkeep of infrastructure needed here at Sea Ranch.
Thank you. Yes, we have both natural infrastructure, such as our hedgerows and trees and forests. And we also have built infrastructure that needs maintenance, such as roofs. And sometimes when trees fall on like the association office or on the Del Mar recreation, then we have to repair those. And there's buildings and sidings. And one thing that had been on the radar a couple of years ago was updating the Sea Ranch Association's offices, which are old and mice are getting in there. And there was a plan, which was like a Christmas tree where everyone put their design choice ornaments on it, and then it fell over because it was so damn expensive. And so we haven't done anything. And still there's mice getting in there, and it's not compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if members go there and they need to access it and something's on the second floor and they can't, it's wrong. So we have a lot of things to upkeep. And one thing that we also have is bluff top erosion. And that's going to be a multi-year process to deal with the trail that's been washed out.
Thank you. Dane, please discuss issues around upkeep of infrastructure needed here at Sea Ranch.
Boy, tough acts to follow because all three of the candidates are well informed, make some wonderful points. And I think by and large, we're in agreement with each other about how critical the infrastructure is, what a treasure Sea Ranch is as a result of that infrastructure that we've built or that has grown here. As Neil says, that the aging trees are a significant challenge. I also see in the 30-year plan a lot of money committed to repaving of our existing road surfaces. And I'm hopeful that we can continue to adopt a pragmatic approach that looks at the ROI and the investments that we make in our infrastructure, and that we engage in intelligent investment when it's needed, not just because it reaches a clock life cycle. So for our roads, for example, we should invest the time and effort in establishing a pavement life index for each road segment. Some of our roads have taken a lot more wear and tear and will need attention sooner, and others likely can last decades without additional work. But if we apply a broad brush to the whole thing and just spend to get all of it to the same spot all at once, it will be needless spending too early. So fundamentally, we don't like to spend money on things that we already bought the first time, invested to plant hedgerows or build roads or in the fiber optic communications infrastructure. But things do wear and break down, and we need to invest to assure that the Sea Ranch remains the treasure that we all get to enjoy every day.
Thank you. Neil, you've done, everyone has answered all that. So we have another question. The board is responsible for determining our dues each year. Do you think the dues are too high?
Thank you. Dues are always too high. My wife and I don't spend a lot of time up here, a couple of weekends a month, but I think realistically, and I know from working with community managers in the past and finance directors, they really spend the money and plan as though it were their own money. And so I have faith that our dues are set where they need to be. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago in response to a different question, we're going to have some extraordinary expenditures for managing our vegetation. One of the things I didn't say is that I was talking to Mark Godley about is when our pine trees were planted, the rule of thumb was about 10% of what you planted would successfully grow. And the opposite happened. 90% of the pines grew. And so as a result of that huge success rate, and one of God's, crazy manifestations of sense of humor, if you like to look at it that way, the 90% success rate means that those pine trees are weaker. Their roots don't go as deep as they otherwise would have, and so they're going to fail more quickly, than they would otherwise. And so it's an example of something you really can't plan for. But I think that our dues have been set at the right level, and they're always painful. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, the board is responsible for determining our dues each year. Do you think the dues are too high?
I think that many things in our life are more expensive than we would like them to be. But that's the reality. And we have had some aspects done to our budgets over the last couple of years due to the input from board members. Like Mark Godley here had wanted a flattening of the curve for some of the things for the 30-year plan. So it wasn't like a sawtooth where some years we needed to be higher and lower due to money set aside for the reserve funds. And we used to have a large carryover, and that the next year, then we'd have to refund it and put it towards the next year. But some of the years, the carryover was like $30 a month, which is basically the membership loaning money to the association so that we didn't overspend. But now we are closer to the costs. And so we are not floating as much as we used to as a membership. So it's less than it could have been if we didn't reduce the carryover. So, yeah.
Thank you. Dane, the board is responsible for determining our dues each year. Do you think the dues are too high?
Yes. I think that there are areas where we have opportunities for improvement. We've had a lot of legal costs. We've engaged in some unnecessary projects that come at high cost. And it's one of the key reasons that I've stepped forward to join the board. I think also that dues should be considered in the context of total member spending. That is dues as well as water bills and Sea Ranch Connect. And so I'm hopeful that if we take a holistic look at those components, that there may be opportunities for savings for our members. In my role in the internet access business, we assisted when Frank Bell and the team were working on the design of the fiber optic network, and we made suggestions. Frank and I met, and I looked at the maps, and I said, well, you can eliminate all these crossings of Highway 1, and you'll save a lot in the project. So seeking some outside input, finding ways to reduce costs, and in the Sea Ranch Connect relationship with the service provider who's managing that, I think we're overpaying for what we're getting. And if reductions in the costs of Sea Ranch Connect that the vast majority of our members subscribe to help offset increases in member dues, I think that would be really positive.
Thank you. Nitin, the board is responsible for determining our dues each year. Do you think the dues are too high?
So I think the dues are correct. I'm supportive of the budget. I'm supportive of the process that was run this year arriving at the budget. So our fees went from $380 to $413. I'm empathetic that $33 isn't nothing. It's consequential. And a couple things. One, we could greatly cut our budget for 1 year. We could delay projects, and that would merely create a shock a couple years later. That would degrade the member experience, but also like sort of delay necessary upgrades to the service. And so it's a balancing act, and that's where the smoothing that Linda described, I think, helps a great deal. The thing I really focus on is the money going on the right issues? First, I'm encouraged that Menka's team is not growing. She's doing a great job, and the team isn't growing with the exact same headcount. They're providing these services at larger scale, and I think that's encouraging. Second, for things like the design platform, the fact that they're moving it to a cloud-based service from paper-based services creates savings. And so embracing technology in ways that requires less headcount but creates savings, much like how we found $300,000 for payroll, I think is encouraging and is a sign of the kind of efficiency we need. Things like Sea Ranch Connect are actually a source of revenue. And I think, like Tim mentioned, there are trade-offs. We can do things like Sea Ranch Connect or the cell tower that generate revenue and have lower HOA fees, or we can have no cell tower and we can have higher HOA fees. There's no right or wrong. These are trade-offs that we have to accept and be thoughtful in the choices that we make.
Thank you. I have a new question. Linda, you start this time.
Okay.
The Sea Ranch collected approximately $76,000 in voluntary fees in the past 12 months from some short-term rental units. Some pay and some don't. Is it possible to make that mandatory?
The answer is no, because we are a homeowners association and we are not a municipality. If we were the town of Sea Ranch, we could mandate it. But that comes down to whether or not we as an association decide that we want to become a municipality. And that would mean a major discussion within us as an organization, and we'd have to vote on it because we would be getting rid of our CC&Rs, or codes, covenants, and restrictions, and we would be having articles of incorporation. That might be helpful with our water company, and then we could also go for grants from the state and maybe the federal government in a few years. But that is a long-term thing. But otherwise, we can't, as we are now, mandate that. But we can ask for it, and that has been done in the past for many years of short-term rentals. And Barry can back me up on that because he has his own experience being the owner of, oh God, I'm blanking on it. Yes, Rams Head Realty. Yes, so he knows all about that. So anyway, that's the answer, is that no, we can't
Thanks. Dane, Sea Ranch has collected approximately 76,000 in voluntary fees in the past 12 months. Some short-term rental units pay and some don't. Is it possible to make that mandatory?
No, it is
Oh,
not.
no.
And I think that the legal foundings behind that are seem to be well understood. I think my question is, can we convince the members who engage in short-term rentals that charging a surcharge to their transient tenants is a benefit to them as well as our community? And we were talking in the previous question about dues, and if someone is renting a home, and is looking at the cost of renting that home, and then there is a small additional fee below the line on that, I would hope that we could see significant participation by really convincing our owners who engage in short-term rental that collecting those funds from their renters and remitting those to our association keeps our budget in check and gives us opportunities to keep dues lower, and that it is a community benefit with very little impact. I don't think that the tenant is going to decide not to visit the Sea Ranch. And so, no, we cannot, but I'm hopeful that we could engage in our outreach to our members and achieve a greater participation.
Thank you. Neil, we know it's not something we can do. So some have paid and some haven't. Since we know it can't be made mandatory, what are your thoughts?
Well, the candidates are right. I was on the short-term rental task force. I had hundreds of hours into it, and that was the easy one to answer. We don't have the legal authority to make it mandatory. I could tell you that Lynn and I and Katie and Sarah, our daughters, we owned a rental for about 4 years, 364 Moonraker. We paid the 3.5%. I think I was on the board at the time, and I wonder if I did that because it would look good. But I did think it was the right thing to do. I liked what Dane said about making a pitch about the fairness of it to owners of short-term rentals. I think that Dane has a good point, and we just do the best we can to encourage the owners of short-term rentals to take the money essentially out of their pockets and to pay it to the Sea Ranch. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Nitin?
Yeah. So first, at the risk of being pedantic, I thought the number was $300,000, and so I believe the previous year we got $400,000. In the most recent board meeting, there was debate on whether we could budget for it to go down to 300, and then Menka's team included the easy pay button to make it easier for folks who couldn't pay online to pay instead of having to drive to Annapolis and deliver a check. And so that's how we arrived at 350 that was put in the budget. So I
Well,
think
this is, from what this question says, it's what they collected. There's what you want and what you get.
yeah, and you can verify with Menka. I believe the number is not 76. That's
Oh,
incorrect.
okay.
That's incorrect. And dare I correct the person asking
No,
the question? But
please.
it's just wrong. It's not 76.
I make mistakes.
Yeah. So it's about 300,000, but I think it really speaks to the ethos of Sea Ranch that folks are willing to accept that voluntary payment and still contribute that 3.5%. Neil and Lynn do, and that's great. I think things like the easy pay button make it easier. I think especially as folks.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think you just got another contribution there. I think it gets more complicated with services like Airbnb, and so a lot of the local rental agencies, they certainly participate and pay that 3.5%. But if you use Airbnb, for instance, Airbnb puts the onus on the owners to actually go there and make that payment. And I think making it easier and to Dane's point, ensuring that we're good stewards of that capital makes us more likely to ensure it continues to be part of the budget process.
Thank you. I have a new question for you. What should be done about the aging and sometimes diseased hedgerows as it relates to the changing climate? Should they be replaced with other species of trees?
So And just as a side note, I appreciate Neil's perspective on this because I know he's especially passionate about it, as are all of us. I think it's never fun to see a tree be cut down. And in many ways, that decision is not made lightly. If it's done, it's because there's a cascade of issues that is to come, either safety issues, like Linda mentioned, a tree falling down on a building, or worse, a pathogen spreading that's worrisome. I think the fact that we've engaged Chris and the team from Berkeley, it's come at a cost of $50,000, but to take those 70 saplings and get an understanding of exactly what pathogen is causing this issue, I think is encouraging. If, for example, a cypress has an issue, chopping a cypress and putting another cypress is not going to solve the issue. Perhaps you plant a redwood. And so being thoughtful is helpful. Dibby made the point about cut a tree, plant a tree. I think that's the kind of model that we should certainly strive for, even if in some instances you prioritize safety and act sooner. But the fact that we have not just said these things, but set aside a substantial amount of this year's budget towards tree rehabilitation makes me really, really confident and so appreciate the work that's going on there.
Thank you. Neil, what should be done about the aging and sometimes diseased hedgerows as it relates to the changing climate? Should they be replaced with other species of trees?
I agree with Nitin's thoughtful response. Thank you.
Okay. Linda?
I respect the work that's been done by the Hedgerow Working Group. They've devoted lots of hours and time and effort in understanding this. And I went out with one of the members and she showed me like the Horizon Reach area that had been cut down. And she said they identified that area as a wetlands. And so that specific place really shouldn't have had cypress trees planted there. And so they're trying to figure out what should be planted in it instead. And in regards to some of the emotion by people for the trees that were cut down here at the Del Mar Center area, after the one fell in the February 2024 storms and damaged the roof but didn't destroy it. It's like that was our wake-up call, that structures such as this building we are in today, which is our emergency shelter, may we never need to have it serve as one, would have been destroyed by the diseased trees that were cut down. And one of those trees, after it had been cut down, I saw a video Jessica Nefsey had made where she put her hand inside a cavity in the tree. There was soil and an earthworm, which should not be in any tree. And we are lucky they were cut down before they fell down.
Thank you. Dane, what should be done about the aging and sometimes diseased hedgerows as it relates to the changing climate? Should they be replaced with other species of trees?
Well, it seems like the candidates are largely in agreement on this topic in general. And I won't give quite as brief an answer in just agreeing, but I think we could all agree that the hedgerows are a key part of our landscape architecture. We also know that trees have a lifespan and that they're under pressure from pathogens. Are they the correct species and should they be replaced with something else? I'm not a landscape architect and I don't have the expertise to give you a well-informed answer to that question. I think we need to defer to our maintenance and facilities folks as well as outside consultants, and we need to seek input from our community, particularly those that are closest to the trees that are being removed and replaced.
Thank you. And now I'll give you another question. What can the board do to better support our volunteers, including committee members?
As someone who recently retired and is focusing entirely on a variety of different volunteer activities, I'll say my best experience has been volunteering with groups where there is a real sense of community. And I think that we see that here at the Sea Ranch in the various volunteer groups in the organization. I've also, though, seen volunteers who have felt shut out or slighted, or who've decided to exit the things that they had been previously doing, in some cases for decades. And it's always sad to me when I see a fracture in a community, and I really would like to see, when that sort of thing happens, there is an attempt at repair. I think about the idea of an exit interview. When an employee chooses to lose a company, it's quite customary to sit down with that person and ask them, where are you going and why are you going there, and what's next for you in your life and your career? And you learn really valuable things in those conversations because they're frank and open and honest. And I think we need to have those kinds of conversations with our. We also need to have those kind of conversations with our residents who are selling their homes and moving away, and make sure that we've been as responsive as we can.
Thank you. Linda, what can the board do to better support our volunteers, including committee members?
Well, I think we have some committees that go to the board, such as the Finance Committee and Utilities Committee and Planning Committee. Those are the three advisory committees. And I think having a good dialogue between the liaisons from the board to the committees that they're working on, and giving them direction as to what is needed by the board from those committees to serve as an advisory capacity. The Finance Committee is pretty dialed in, and I don't think there needs to be any change of that. But yes, the Utilities Committee needs some direction and reconstitution. And the Planning Committee will be needed in their advisory capacity going forward due to the January washout of the trail near Walk-On Beach. And so we will be needing them, and having a good direction with the liaison for that will be needed.
Thank you. Neil, what can the board do to better support our volunteers, including committee members?
What a great question to be asking. I like what Linda and Dane had to say. Dane mentioned a good idea in another slightly different context, but same idea, and that is, I suppose we could send a survey to our committee members. Say, well, what can we do to make this this experience more rewarding? I'll stop there.
Thank you. Nitin, what can the board do to better support our volunteers, including committee members?
So there's volunteering writ large, and then there's committee members. And in some ways, those are different, so I'll take them one by one. So first, for volunteering, I think the board doesn't need to be involved in everything. In many ways, like Sea Ranch is wonderful because the board isn't the be-all, end-all of Sea Ranch. It's the people who make Sea Ranch Sea Ranch. I love that our neighbors are Brian and Jean are SEAL docents, and that's wonderful. And they find it an enriching experience to be in nature, to contribute, to get to know their fellow member. And in some ways, I think the board needs to support but stay out of the larger volunteering initiative. As far as committees, it's a different engagement. I think we need to provide direction, but also for critical issues like cell tower, take ownership and not just merely have the committee be responsible. For the most thorny issues, the board should step up and be the folks who take ownership about what happens.
Thank you. Neil, new question. The Planning Committee periodically prepares updates of the Comprehensive Environmental Plan, CEP. Do you understand how the CEP is integral to the planning process, to the board of directors, and to staff?
Well, I met with Debbie Tyler the other day. Debbie has written quite a few of these and was a planner in her working life. I do believe I understand what the CEP is. I know we write it every 5 years, 3 years. Um, and I know Debbie explained to me how many hundreds of hours have gone into the draft of the new one, how it's being circulated now, how we're seeking comments. It's a rather long document, the current one under review, and it's been drafted, and the process will go on. It has sections for all the important components of our community, whether it's the environment, whether it's our infrastructure, whether it's housing. I know Lisa's back there. I know I'm forgetting some of the chapters, but it's a very important planning document. And I used to have two in my binder. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, the Planning Committee periodically prepares updates of the comprehensive environmental plan. Do you understand how the CEP is integral to the planning process, to the board of directors, and to staff?
Yes, it is by definition comprehensive. And I was asked to help out with the planning committee when they were doing their workshops this past fall because they wanted it recorded and they were doing it in here. And so they asked me to do the AV. So I was sitting there in those workshops and going through and seeing all the different aspects in different weeks that they were doing it for the different angles. And yes, and I think it was more than every 5 years. I think it's been more like 14 years or something to that. And I think we've had, this may be our third, or is it fourth? I'm looking at Dibby. It'll be the fourth comprehensive environmental plan. So it takes a while to do it. And it would be nicer if we could try to do it in smaller chunks and try to do it in a 5-year thing. I'm used to laboratories where we review our procedure manuals on an annual basis and we take out procedures that we don't use anymore and we update other ones. But it is a big, massive, comprehensive thing, and I should finish reading it. Thank you.
Dane, the Planning Committee periodically prepares updates of the comprehensive environmental plan. Do you understand how the CEP is integral to the planning process, to the board of directors, and to staff?
The short answer is no. This is an area that I don't have expertise, and I'm sure there'll be other areas as we think about the management and engagement that the board does with the staff and with the community where I don't have complete expertise. So I don't. So the short answer, the long answer is also no. I really don't have a good viewpoint on that and a good understanding.
Thank you. Nitin, the Planning Committee periodically prepares updates of the comprehensive environmental plan. Do you understand how integral the CEP is to the planning process for the board of directors and the staff?
So my answer is somewhat similar to what folks said. So like Dane mentioned, this isn't the area of my expertise. I'm really grateful for the work that's been done putting it together. I think the board has an understanding, the staff has an understanding. I think it's really hard to get 2,200 owners to read a 186-page document. And so there needs to be a 2-page version of it that more people can engage with, participate in. And so if you want to go really deep, there should be the rigor of that really deep document. But if you want to be involved, there need to be easy ways to be involved. And I think that's the part we're missing. The 186 page document is great. We need the pieces that we don't have.
Thanks. New question. Linda, how will you manage follow-through on reports from a task force, committee, or commissioned outside expert?
Follow through on task force reports. I mean, if you have, for example, and it's like, because I was watching this last night, the 2007 forum that was done on bluff top erosion. That was about an April 2003 washout of the area that we have washed out by Walk-On Beach, Sea Pine Reach. And we're working, it's the beginning process with the planning committee and the trails committee, but it will also be with Sonoma County. And I watched Marty Campbell talking about how frustrating it was for her that they can have meetings and then 9 months later they'll have meetings again. And she was talking about, and this was in 2007, sort of like, how long is this going to take? And then I looked up and saw that it was in the soundings spring 2014 edition that they were hoping to then reopen the trail. So it's some things like this are going to be a long process, and the follow through is sometimes taking patience, because if you're going to be working with Sonoma County and the California Coastal Commission, you may just need a big cup of chamomile tea and patience.
Thanks. Dane, how will you manage follow-through on reports from a task force, committee, or commissioned outside expert?
I think in a general context, it's amazing and wonderful when you can have outside experts who put their time and effort in, whether it's paid or voluntary, to lend their opinion to an area they become or are subject matters experts in. I think also you see in many bureaucracies that the generation of reports and studies and committees is a way to not do a thing or to put off doing a thing. And so follow through, I think, if I think about the questioner's context here, is why do we study something and then not do something about it? And I think that's something, particularly when you are talking about paid studies, you're hiring an outside consultant to do something. A board needs to be really responsible in regards to those kinds of things and not spend the members' money on a report that just is really a delaying tactic towards not making a decision about a thing, or in hopes that the report supports, their personal opinion about an outcome that may or may not agree with the membership. So this is, an issue of, in some cases, organizational inertia or bureaucracy that we need to be careful about.
Thank you. Nitin, how will you manage follow-through on reports from a task force, committee, or commissioned outside expert?
Yeah, so I think it's incredibly important that if someone takes the time and works really hard, paid a volunteer to work on a task force, we owe them the courtesy of a reply. We need to acknowledge their hard work, acknowledge the time they've put in, and because if not, if it goes into a black hole, they simply won't volunteer the next time. And so just making sure they're seen, making sure their input is valued is incredibly important. Making sure we're communicative, and that's not just Bianca's job. I think that's on all of us as board members to make sure that we engage with folks who make the effort of putting a task force response. And just be transparent about what you are going to do and what you aren't going to do. Finally, I think task forces are advisory in format, and ultimately it's on the board members to make decisions. And so be really clear about, is the job provide an advice or make a decision, and being just transparent on, in companies call this the RACI framework. Like, are they providing advice or do they have true ownership on the decision? Just being incredibly clear will help a lot. And then finally, members sometimes bounce on task force folks. And it's important as board members to shield the people volunteering on task forces from making sure they're not punching bags for working on a thorny topic.
Thank you. And our next question,
Oh, did you get Neil?
Did Neil?
did Dane? Neil.
Neil.
Sorry.
It's all right, Paula. I can take it. No, why don't I go ahead? On task forces, it's my experience worked very well. The board, when it establishes a task force, it gives direction to what how the task force should return its work product. So in the case of the short-term rental task force, the board said to the task force, we want you to come back with recommendations to the board. And so our task force did that. We had hundreds of hours into it. We prepared a written document. We went back to the board and said, here are our recommendations. Then the board took up the recommendations and went up or down and changed some, and then and then went on to the county of Sonoma and suggested some performance standards for short-term rentals. And that's the way it worked then. I'm sure it will work that way in the future if it's well managed at the front end, and I think it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's stay with you, Neil. It seems, though I won't miss you, it seems there is a concern that information about ideas and projects is minimal or not clearly conveyed to members. Some members would like to increase flow of opinions, ideas, experience, expertise on current issues to board, and then feedback given. How would you help make that happen?
Wow. Well, it starts with interest on the part of that portion of the community that's not involved in governance or committees. My lovely wife, Lynn, she has absolutely no interest in being involved in governance or having her opinion requested. She comes up here to walk on the trails and whatnot. So it starts with interest. On a personal level, I'm the firstborn of 5. Typical firstborn. I charge ahead. I have the unreasonable belief that everyone wants me to be involved and is interested in my opinion. Kind of crazy, but kind of typical for firstborn. I don't know what it's like to be my 5th brother, right? So I think no matter what you do as a board, there are going to be people at the end of a process who are going to say, gosh, I wish you'd asked for my opinion. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's part of human nature. But it doesn't suggest to me that there's a problem at the board level. But we could always do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, it seems there is concern that information about ideas and projects is minimal or not clearly conveyed to members. Some members would like to increase flow of opinions, ideas, experience on current issues, and then to the board and then get feedback. How would you make that happen?
So there are some perennial complaints from members that I've noticed over the years. One is which I don't like the website. Another is communication is bad. And that's been every year, every update of website or anything. And I see if you're not subscribed to the weekly info alerts, you're not going to know what's going on. If you don't read the bulletin, because now you don't have to have it mailed to you, you can have an email. And if you don't look at it, then you're not seeing it. Same thing with the soundings, but that one's mailed. But there are times to come, the midwinter meeting, the annual meeting in May, the candidates forum. Thank you, everyone who's here. And you can schmooze with us afterwards at the reception, and you can chat with us. But you should also be able to chat with us at the annual meeting or at the barbecue fundraiser for the firefighters the day after. And I'm reminded of Millie Davis, longtime member who died here just short of her 99th birthday. She came to every meeting, and her husband, Jeff, every board meeting for years. And in 1990, when they were given Sea Ranchers of the Year, she was complaining that there weren't as many people at board meetings. There used to be more when there were fewer people. And she said now people come to the board meetings when there's a single issue that they're cared about, but not regular board meetings. And I'm going to say, Barry, thank you, because you're always at every board meeting and you speak on just about every topic. So we know what Barry thinks, and you can be more like Barry.
Dane, it seems there is a concern that information about ideas and projects is minimal or not clearly conveyed to members. Some members would like to increase flow of opinions, ideas, experience, expertise, and current issues to the board. How would you help make that happen?
Well, I talked in my opening statement about the importance of surveying our membership in a way that is convenient to them, that they'll engage and participate in. I think as a board, we need to know as much as we can about what people's priorities are for our community. I think this question also touches on, information about projects as they proceed. And one of the challenges that we often see in organizations is we decide there's a project and there's a team working on a project, and then we don't hear anything about it for a long period of time. And that leads to, folks feeling like, oh, nothing's happened, and, frustration, and they get upset about the process. So I do think that when we have projects underway and decisions are made and we're in the execution phase, and execution takes time, or there is some delay, we need to continuously update members, even if there isn't an update, right? This project is still underway. We still intend to conclude it. However, nothing has happened in the last month, and we have no new information. So we need to, both from a board level and also from staff, we need to see communication about ideas and projects, even when there aren't any updates.
Thank you. Nitin, it seems there is a concern about information and ideas and projects not clearly conveyed to members, and the more members would like increased flow of opinions and giving feedback to the board. And how would you make that happen?
Yeah, so I truly appreciate the question. I think we sometimes confuse not being heard with not being agreed with. And I think there's plenty of opportunity to be heard. You can go to participate at tsra.com/governance, the info alerts, the board meetings. There are many, the committees, there are many ways to be informed and to engage. And in many ways, folks engage, they don't get the answer they want, and they say, well, I'm not being heard. And we should separate the two issues. That said, I think if we want to get more people involved, we have to recognize, like Dane mentioned, that people want to participate in different ways. There are 2,200 lots, 1,800 houses, about 4,400 owners. There's 50 people in this room. There's a reason why 4,000 people are not here, and it's because this may not be their preferred method to engage, but they do want to be involved. And the easier we make it, more people will be involved. If we run 5.5-hour meetings, we will get fewer people than if we run 50-minute meetings. And so you have to strike a balance between being open to input. I think Tim does an excellent job with that, but also having the structure and urgency so that it's a good use of everybody's time.
Thank you. Dane, would you support the formation of a task force or working group to prepare options for better home and emergency communications for Sea Ranch, and specifically for the northern separate in the low coverage areas?
This question sounds a bit like another tack on the another direction on the northern cell tower, and whether or not we need a northern cell tower. Communications are critical. The vast majority of our homes have internet access, and through that internet access, folks can use Wi-Fi calling and make calls on their cell phones when they're within the confines of their home in general. I don't know if a task force is needed, and I'm not clear on what the goal of the questionnaire is there. So I don't have a better answer than that, I'm afraid.
Thanks. Linda, would you support the formation of a task force or working group to prepare options for better home and emergency communications for Sea Ranch, and specifically for the northern segments in the low coverage areas?
So as a member of the damage assessors, I think potentially, asking the division leaders for more emergency communications. It's like there was some suggestions by people who do not want to have improved infrastructure for our communications, that people in the area of east of Highway 1 and in the north get satellite phones. And it's like, what's a satellite phone? And I looked it up, and it's like, they're about $1,000, and those are the phones that you use at the base of Mount Everest. And it's like, I don't think we need to tell people through a task force that if you live in that area, you need to spend excessive amounts for your own communication things in case of emergencies, and spend $1,000 for a satellite phone that you may only be able to use outside in the sky pointed there, and good luck with trees. So I'm also not quite sure exactly what the focus is of that, but I'm all for safety.
Thanks. Neil, would you support the formation of a task force or working group to prepare options for better home and emergency communications for Sea Ranch and specifically for the northern segments in low coverage areas?
Not sure Paula, this is not a criticism of you. I'm not sure.
Well, I think they're concerned about, well, for example, Burbank has very poor coverage. So should we have a task force take a look at that, or?
I'm not in favor of,
Okay.
of, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the board or staff are doing on that now, so I'm not able to tell you. I'm too ignorant of it to say we should form a task force. I think it was it Dane or someone else was saying, well, got to be careful about just forming task forces for everything. And pardon me if I mischaracterize, but it's what you do with it that's important. So I don't have enough information to give an opinion.
Okay. Nitin?
No, I would not create another task force. I think it's more important that the existing task forces are effective, and we shouldn't send the message that the only way you get anything done is by creating new task forces, creating new committees. I think the issues are largely already covered in what the board and committees are doing, and that's the forum, and that's where you should be effective in what you do. I think the third, especially since a lot of it was disaster preparedness. Again, a lot of that is covered in the 30-year plan and elsewhere. That's the right place to do it. It would actually be detrimental to fragment even newer efforts.
Okay, thanks.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I thought of something, and I want to modify my answer if that's
Do you have any time left?
There was one in 2004, Matt Fott, the manager's advisory task force on telecommunications. And that one back in 2004 identified that there was communication problems in the north and east of Highway 1.
Okay, thanks. And we have one question that's come in. Do any of you intend to attempt revising or eliminating any existing airport rules or any parameter listed in the FAA Airport Master Record? I'll start with you, Linda.
I think that the membership is pretty tired of the airport rules and safety being brought up, that it took years to get it all done. And anyone interested in knowing what was done, that was, we did a forum on that, airport rules and safety, and the history of it. I also did 2 articles in the Soundings talking about that. But if there is any interest in opening up any rules on the safety things at the airport, if that were done, I would be interested in re-examining having carve-outs for individual members for weight. I don't think if planes are too heavy to land that you should give carve-outs for anyone. So I would be interested in revising that, or at least articulating my opinion on that, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to introduce that.
Okay. Neil, would you be interested in revising or eliminating any TSA airport rules or any parameter listed in the FAA airport master record? I don't think you could do that.
Well, I'm an oldest child. Of course I could. I'm delusional. No, I think that's it sounds, I'm concerned that would be an end run around decisions that have already been made. A lot of effort has gone into it. I have in front of me the April 24, 2025 letter from Caltrans commenting on proposed rules and endorsing them. I don't see a reason to reopen that. And it sounds like I understand there's some folks that are unhappy with the new rules, but it's we needed rules. It was kind of the Wild West, and we as an association, we are accountable for what goes on there. And it's about health and life and health and safety. For example, you have to have 1,000 feet of visibility. Okay, that's an FAA rule. So we're not going to revisit that. Thank you.
Nitin, do you have an interest in revising or eliminating any of the rules or the parameters listed in the FAA airport master record?
No, I don't. I think the greatest good, like everyone's time is valuable. Greatest good for the greatest number of people. There are 30 pilots and there are 4,400 people here. And so I think really focusing the majority of time on the things that impact the majority of people is just better use of time. We've spent extensive time on airport rules, on cameras. We've landed at a place that's uncomfortable to some, but in many ways is something that we shouldn't needlessly revisit. Of the four of us, Dane is a pilot, so especially interested in his perspective.
Well, Dane, it's your turn.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you, Marcus, for the question. And I think it's a pointed question in my direction, and I'll certainly accept that. Part of my drive for volunteering for this board was my frustration with the process whereby the 30 pilots or so were handed down a set of new limitations on an amenity that they had made use of for decades. The folks who were most greatly affected by that, those opinions were unfortunately not given what I view as adequate weight. I do think that the membership is tired of spending money on the airport, and certainly legal costs and consultants and meetings with Caltrans and so on have all been very costly. And to Nitin's point, that does not make sense. I do think that there are some common sense changes that should be made there. I often see pedestrians on the runway taking selfies, and we lack a sign that says no entry, no trespassing, no vehicles or pedestrians on the runway. At the area right by the parking lot, there's no signage there. There's some alongside the runway elsewhere, but not in the place where most people walk on. And I'll see someone on the runway every few weeks. And it really is a safety concern if an airplane is coming in quickly. I think if we have concerns about non-members landing at the airport, the pilots currently monitor all of the traffic, and Sea Ranch is alerted if any unknown aircraft lands there. But I noticed that the paint marking of a giant word private and a big R for restricted on the ends of the runway, the paint has worn out and it's difficult to see. And so someone flying over might say, well, that's a nice little spot. Let's try landing there, without really seeing that we care that it's private. We can't even be bothered to put down a coat of paint. So thank you.
Time.
That's all right.
Okay. Nitin, what's your priority as a board member?
Um, so two things. One, really investing in the long-term infrastructure of Sea Ranch. I think we start from a very good place. How can we invest in making sure that the foundational infrastructure of Sea Ranch, roads, connectivity, reliable water, power, continues to be great over the long term, and we make the investments now so that the next generation of folks at Sea Ranch have a great experience. And second, engaging everybody who is part of Sea Ranch but doesn't know how to be involved with TSRA or isn't involved enough or can't attend enough meetings. I think we should actually embrace and welcome new folks who want to be involved, haven't figured out how, and I think they have a lot to contribute.
Thank you. Neil, what's your priority as a board member?
Well, I thought about what I would like to change if I had a do-over from when I was on the board. I think I spent too much time focused on what was immediately in front of us. You know, the issues of the day at the time. By the way, if you ever want to get people to attend a meeting, make it be about pickleball. It was very exciting whenever pickleball came up. But seriously, it's as Nitin was saying, what I want to do is think beyond, focus beyond the issues of the day, and they are important. Whether it's the airport or whether it's North Cell Tower, there was important issues. But I want to focus on what we're going to do about our hedgerows, what we're going to do about fire safety. Those are long-term things, and having my focus look forward another 63 years is why I'm really running. I want a do-over. Thank you.
Thanks. Linda, what's your priority if you became a board member?
Safety. Supporting the health and safety of our members. And I am in support of our first responders in whatever they say that they need done to help us live here out on the edge. And when I worked at RCMS, it was literally called frontier medicine, which I thought was a pejorative, but no, actually it's a term. One of the things a few years ago that was very controversial here was updating our vegetation management plan. And there were people that were adamantly against it. And the thing that drove a lot of them to almost to passion was maintaining a fire road parallel to Schooner. And I thought, if our fire chief wants a fire road maintained so that fire vehicles can get there, yeah, what's the problem? And I just checked with Bonnie, and she said, yes, that was maintained. It was 15 feet brush back, and now they can get the vehicles through. They were people saying that it was going to be a 300-foot clear cut of the central forest. No, it wasn't. And the sky is still where it is. Everything hasn't fallen down. It's safety. And I will support CLSD and our firefighters in whatever they need to help us live here on the edge of the Pacific. Thank you.
Dane, what would your priority be as a board member?
I've had a little time to think about this as the others have answered, and I appreciate that, because I think my priority is, and my reason for beginning to run, for choosing to run, is member conflict. I have felt unheard. I feel like my opinion has been disregarded, and there hasn't been an agreement about the facts around issues that I care about as a member. And when I hear from other members about, they're so frustrated that they want to file a lawsuit against the association, which will cost all of us a lot of money, I know that that is a a threat that anyone can levy, but it is a really strong signal that they're feeling very frustrated and unheard. And when members of your community get that angry, there needs to be collaboration, a round table, some healing, and some opportunity to find common ground. So as I think about, what my priority is as a board member, I really believe collaborative governance is important, whether in a business or in a community and a board. And I would really look forward to working closely with the other board members and with the members here at the Sea Ranch.
Thank you, Dane. Here's the last question before you all give us your wrap up. Dane, in your opinion, what makes Sea Ranch special?
Gosh. Oh, well, the cliche is answer is that it's the people. And that's an accurate one as well. The concept, the standards that have led to the creation of a community that has this balance of environment and access, of design and aesthetic, and freedom, personal freedom, and those components have made the Sea Ranch really a place that we feel as a family. My wife and I, our 3 teenagers, we feel really good about being here, and it's all those components that bring those feelings.
Thank you. Linda, what makes Sea Ranch special?
One, the stark beauty of the area, the wildlife that we see, but also the intentionality of the development, the design committee that allowed certain styles of homes. It has intentionality and a beauty to it. And when I look at other coastal communities, such as Wallala, Jenner, Bodega Bay, it doesn't have the same feeling as Sea Ranch does. So that's why we came here.
Neil?
This is so great. I get to steal Nitin's words. And I want to credit him. In Nitin's first candidate statement, he said something I want to endorse. He said, you come for the place and you stay for the people. And thank you for that, Nitin. And he was quoting a friend. And today, I'm really impressed by what the other candidates have had to say. I think Sea Ranch should be well served if any of the other candidates were elected. And I really enjoyed this process. The place is our healing place. Lynn and I come up and we fall asleep to the sound of the waves and walk on the bluff like everybody, all of us. But this has been a great process. Thank you.
Nitin?
The person who said, so it was Arun Patel, the friend and photographer many of us know. Arun was at our wedding. He said, you come for the nature, you stay for the people. And that's really struck with me. I love that we are both, Sea Ranch is in many ways filled with dichotomies. It is both so remarkably consistent as you go around, and it is also an expression of all the ways we are different. And you see that in how people have different perspectives, they disagree on some issues, they come from vastly different generations, and yet this is the place where we become the best versions of ourselves. We have some of the most pivotal moments of our life. It's an incredible place to reflect, to grow. And so just extremely grateful to be part of Sea Ranch. And wouldn't it be a shame if 60 years from now, people didn't remember Sea Ranch in the same way? I think, if anything, our best days are ahead of us. I actually think incredibly highly of Jenner, of Wallala, of all of those places. I think we can have a more friendly, neighborly relationship with all of those places. Indeed, that's the place we buy our groceries and go to the gym. And and we couldn't exist without them, and vice versa. And so I think we can create the best Sea Ranch and the best relationship with the folks around us as well.
Thanks. You all are going to have 2 minutes to wrap up your thoughts about your candidacy and why you're running. So, Dane, shall I start with you? Your closing statement?
Yeah, that probably makes the most sense. I've had the most time to think about it while the others have been speaking, so I appreciate that. I'll echo the comments that, you know, it's really wonderful to have 4 good, solid candidates with wonderful and diverse experience and in their professional lives and in regards to the Sea Ranch running. It's wonderful to see that. I would appreciate the opportunity to volunteer to serve this community. And I look forward to bringing a pragmatic, listening, problem solving view to governance at the Sea Ranch. And I look forward to working with the staff and the other board members of the association.
Thank you. Linda?
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who came here today, those on Zoom and later on YouTube, because this is local democracy in action, sort of like the demonstration earlier today. And yes, I do believe in Sea Ranch being a part of the greater Mendonoma community. And we need to, when we are doing our public policy, try to reach out to others within our community whenever possible and include them, and see how Sea Ranch works with the local municipalities. We need directors who will take the time and effort to educate themselves on complicated topics and then work collaboratively with others to craft policy directives to guide our staff into executing those decisions. And if elected, I promise to take my Hermione Granger-like intellect and study the topics of the day, printing out reports, taking a highlighter of items of particular interest, following the footnotes, and then asking detailed questions of experts to understand the topics better. And I hope to schmooze with many of you at the reception afterwards. Thank you.
Neil?
Yeah, we are here today, March 28th, 2026, because of our shared story. I mentioned at the start because of what happened in 1963. And those of us who are here physically, who are here virtually, excuse me, who are going to watch the video, care enough that we make in our future leaders, that we would make decisions in the next year, in the next 3 years, that will prove to be good decisions for the next 60 years. Thank you.
Nitin, it's your turn to wrap it up.
So first, thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of it. It's a real privilege. We have some incredibly strong candidates, and I just am grateful to be considered. And irrespective of the outcome of the election, Tommy and I are very much invested in the long term of Sea Ranch. We're excited for the next 60 years to come and grateful to contribute in different ways as opportunities arise. As I had the opportunity in my last role to be an executive of a public company. I've worked with different stakeholders, managed hundreds of millions of dollars of budgets, and in what would, as I think about applying those skills to different communities I cared most about, clearly the Sea Ranch is at the top of the list. I feel like in some ways I look and am different than other folks, and so hopefully have something different to contribute as well, and want to be a real thoughtful, pragmatic partner to the board we have, and in many ways a bridge to the board we will have over the next several generations.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming, including the audience. The meeting's recorded. You can watch it on YouTube. And if you aren't on the forum mailing list, you can sign up. Now, there's a little work before we go to the party. We all have to put the chairs away. Now, remember, you can't go higher than 20, and thanks for coming. And also, we have the email on the candidate statement, and if there's something that we didn't talk about that you want to know, email them. Okay? Thanks.